What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. The phone lines, well, we're going to take 3 more calls, then we're going to close the phone lines because I got a bunch of news I need to get to. So, Walt in Louisiana, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good.
I just wanted to know I want to know your opinion on the NDAA 2017, and since it's supposed, I believe, go into effect in maybe a month or so, I wonder what you think about, I guess, what he's going to do about that, since that's basically, I guess, overriding the First Amendment and, I guess, the press in general. What's your thoughts on that?
I have not read the text of the 2017 NDAA. I obviously need to. There's just so much.
Well, I guess specifically that countering disinformation, when they're going to put together that global censor, I guess, to counter quote unquote outside sources, but really it's basically going against alternative independent media.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Well, they're cranking up, you know, a bigger, better propaganda bureau. But they're fighting a losing battle, because any new propaganda organization by the U.S. government and the corporate media is going to run into the same credibility problem as the current corporate media and propaganda department. And all it's really going to do, it's going to have the banned in Boston effect, where it's simply going to drive people away and say, okay, there's something they don't want us to see. We need to find out what that was. Go back and look at the history of World War II, when the primary means of sharing information was shortwave, and everybody was engaged in radio jamming. In fact, that continued throughout the entire Cold War, where the Soviet Union was jamming Voice of America, and it was a real mess for anybody who was a shortwave aficionado. And that's basically what it was, trying to keep populations from finding out things the government didn't want them to know. We seem to be getting back into that same mindset. But then you find out people who were able to find ways around the jamming, or were able to set up much more directional antennas, because the jamming signals were coming from a different direction from the broadcast they wanted. And in the long run, the jamming proved to not be all that effective. And I think we can sort of deduce from that it may not be all that effective now. This attempt to use corporate social media like Twitter and Facebook has resulted in people turning away from those platforms and going to other new startup social media, or even more importantly, they're starting to go peer-to-peer. People are starting to come out with peer-to-peer information sharing platforms that go back to the original spirit of the Internet, that nothing goes through a central collection point where it can be controlled. And there's no putting the genie back in the bottle on this one. We went through this same thing with Gutenberg's time. We're going through it again. The power structure, the elites want to still be in control of what you think, and they're losing their grip. In fact, you could almost tell the story of history as an ongoing battle between rulers who want to control what their populations believe versus these occasional technological leaps that change the dynamic of information flow, whether it was movable type printing, newspapers, radio, TV, telephone, and now the Internet.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. We're going to switch over.
All right. Yeah.
Going to switch over to Dennis in Florida. Aloha, Dennis. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. It's been a while since I called in. Those rail cars you were talking about, is that out in Hawaii or is it on the mainland?
Well, we have a rail system that they're trying to build here in Hawaii, and the rail cars are going to have to be replaced. The story that I was talking about, though, and it's linked on the front page of whatreallyhappened.com, was how in order to replace rail cars and expand capacity on this Massachusetts rail line, they've actually hired a Chinese company that's going to come on in and set up a factory in Springfield, Massachusetts to make the cars, which is good for jobs for the people of Springfield. But the point I was making is, because we have allowed manufacturing to fade for 30 years in this country, we have forgotten how to do it. In fact, those people who knew how to make manufacturing work have been lured away to other countries. And so we've lost that particular brain trust, and we need to get it back.
Are you familiar with Kawasaki manufacturing, Kawasaki rail cars?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because the same company, I think, that makes the motorcycles. I'll ask you this. What is Kawasaki rail cars, Gerald Salente, Affirmative Action, the Communist Party USA, James Comey, and me have in common?
I have no idea.
Not to mention,
you all right, Kawasaki? You all right?
We all came out of Yonkers, New York, and I firsthand saw how the federal busing and affirmative action took down the manufacturing in Yonkers, where Kawasaki rail cars was manufactured. They did a lot of rail cars for the United States. It was the site of the old Otis Elevator Company. Mm-hmm. The first manufacturer of the safety elevator from back in the 1800s, like around 1860, you know?
Yes.
And that's that whole thing there. I've seen it firsthand, like you say, that they've taken this all apart, you know? And they wound up, you know, where I've seen the factories one by one. It was a big factory town back when I was growing up. Everybody worked for the Alexander Smith Carpet Mill. They worked for Otis Elevator. You know, there was a lot of jobs. Even Con Edison, Consolidated Edison, a power company, everything was jobbed out. Everything got, you know, farmed out, you know, to outside, you know, people coming in. And the corporations, that's what it is. It's the corporation, the bottom line, and that's what's killing us today.
Well, that's a big part of it, but there was another aspect, and it had to do with the aftermath of the tech boom of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where because of the Apollo Moon program, all of a sudden we were in possession of these brand new technologies that allowed the creation of fabulous new products. But instead of building the factories and making those products here, I mean, some did. Texas Instruments did. Intel started here. But for the most part, the holders of those technologies simply decided, well, you know, I've got the patent. I'm just going to sell out and retire, and I'll be very, very wealthy. And these patents to these technologies were being sought by the manufacturing giants over in Asia, Japan, China, Taiwan. And so the manufacturing and the jobs that went with it went over there. When Seymour Cray was designing the last supercomputer that he built before he passed on, he didn't even try and find any American manufacturers for large-scale integrated circuits. He went right to Japan to place the order. And that's that was a hideous mistake, to spend all that taxpayer money to create this technology foundation and then just sort of sell it off to our economic competitors around the world instead of using it to relaunch a manufacturing boom in this country.
And you touched on something that Captain Austin Fitz put in her latest column. You talked about how he sent American money, taxpayer money, over to Japan, right? She talks about the two classes that are getting our money, and, well, actually, the taxpayer is not getting any return for his investment, but the corporations and the elitists are raking it in like crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a theft of our money from us and our wealth and our youth for the war machine and for the technology to be built elsewhere, or for the profits to go back there, you know?
Yeah, that's true, because ultimately, while the U.S. Importers, the big box stores, are making some money importing these manufactured products based on U.S. technology, the real value of a manufactured good is that manufacturing job, and those were all allowed to go to other countries. It's been a long process. It started, again, all the way back in 1980s. It started into a decline. And the U.S. government, rather than addressing the manufacturing decline, the U.S. government declared the service economy, which was this idea that we could prosper the nation by doing each other's laundry for a fee. And while that kind of activity increased taxation opportunities for the government, it did not bring new wealth into the country. And that's when it began to really start deteriorating. Because if you're going to, you cannot have a functioning national economy unless you have products that you can sell to other countries who want to buy those products. not arm twist them to force them to buy the products through various trade agreements and so forth and so on, which is what TPP and TTIP are all about, is forcing countries to buy our products when they don't really want to. And that's almost an admission that the government understands. We don't make anything anybody wants. Nobody wants our GMO agriculture. Well, by golly, we'll wag nuclear missiles at them, and they will buy our products. Anyway, Dennis, I need to let you go.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates just now rejoining the network. We're going to take one more phone call, and then we're going to close the phone lines for a little while because I'm way behind on the news points here. Dan in British Columbia, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Dan, are you there? Dan once, Dan twice, Dan three times. I think we lost him. All right, getting on back to the news. So, we were talking about the economic news. We were talking about Sears on the verge of collapse, and we have seen so many retailers just going out of business. And again, it gets down to a simple reality. All of the wealth of the nation has been shoved up to the top of that pyramid. And there aren't enough of those money junkies to travel around to all the shopping malls and visit all the stores and buy all the consumer goods to keep the economy going again. You cannot have a healthy economy when ordinary people are not able to go to the stores and buy the products being manufactured and grown in, hopefully, American factories and American farms. It simply does not work. And it's very alarming to me that I hear nobody in the bowels of power, or even Wall Street, addressing this reality. Now, when the country was doing very, very well, it did so because those who were very rich did pay higher amounts of tax money. They had lower tax rates, but they still paid higher amounts of tax money, and that money would flow back down, back to the bottom, and it would feed back in. But the way the system is set up right now, it's like there's a trapdoor. Once the money goes above the level into the money junkie domain, it's not allowed to come back down here. I'm very alarmed at everybody who's screaming how increasing the minimum wage is going to be an economic disaster. We're in an economic disaster now. We need a way out. And it may be drastic. We may need to simply say, we're going to write off all the debt. We're going to write off all the debt. We're going to bring back high-paying jobs for the middle class and the working class so that they can start buying things, thereby creating manufacturing, retail jobs, and get things back on track. It seems like the oligarchs, the money junkies, are perfectly happy with the way things are, even though eventually it's going to collapse. I'm seeing all these financial experts who are saying it's going to happen this year. The money junkies, in the throes of their addiction, are going to kill the goose that has been laying them the golden eggs, and they don't see it coming. They do not see it coming. Now, if you talk to any financial expert today, they're going to tell you, get out of debt, get out of debt, get out of debt. And people can't. 1/4 of Americans can't make their monthly bills. Their rent, their food, their electricity, whatever it is that they need just to live. And they're being forced to go back on the credit cards. And that basically looks like economic activity, but it isn't. It's just more debt. You get to a point where you're borrowing off one credit card to pay another credit card, just like Greece is trying to do right now. Student loans and car loans are up 80% since 2008. Here's another article. This came out of Investment Watch blog. Inflation is not evenly distributed. The effects of inflation are felt by ordinary people. The ultra-rich with their subsidies and various other financial deals, they're protected from it. They don't feel the pain. And that is another symptom of fascism here. Here's a good question. A lot of people have been asking this. The Chicago public school system has $9 billion with a B in debt, and yet they're only servicing 381,000 students. And as a matter of fact, the Chicago public school system is trying to borrow another $900 million in the coming weeks, basically to get through the school year. Where's the money going? Where has all the money gone? Now, earlier in the week, actually it was last week, we were hearing these scare stories about how Obama's new budget was going after the poor, was going to slash food stamps, and there was a lot of scare talk out there. So the White House basically came on out. The budget director, Mick Mulvaney, came on out and said, calm some of it down. Okay? There are no cuts to Social Security or Medicare. So if you were hearing that, that was another piece of false news. A lot of false news out there. Now the FBI is saying that Comey was fooled by a phony Russian document. They're blaming everything on Russia. It's really getting insane out there. I'm seeing a lot of articles that are saying it just feels like it is starting to fall apart. It's starting to fragment. It's worried what the U.S. federal government might do in its death throes involving those nuclear weapons. Still a lot of debate over the Trump care bill. The liberals are still trying to defend Obamacare, even though it was a disaster. And they're fighting tooth and nail against Trump care. And Trump care doesn't seem to be doing much better because, as it's currently conceived, 23 million people would lose coverage. Now, Obamacare was supposed to guarantee coverage to everybody, even though it made it much more expensive at a time when people just can't afford the increase. And a lot of people are having to buy health insurance that is not Obamacare compliant and then pay that IRS fine on top of it. The mindset from the corporate government perspective seems to be just grab, 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 grab. And none of them want to open their eyes and just take a look out there and say, there is hardly anything left. And you cannot run a national economy on the top 1 or 5% just shifting the money back and forth with tremendous fury. Japanese business executives look at the United States and joke that America seems to feel that you can make money grow just by shaking it back and forth. Move it around quick, back and forth. It'll grow. Everybody will be rich. No. And again, you don't need me to tell you this. Walk down the main street of your nearby town. The retail vacancies, cracked pavement, the deteriorated paint. Walk through your town as if you were a tourist seeing it for the first time. You'll get an idea of just how much this nation has declined. And we are an empire in decline. We're showing all of this. And it is a tragedy because I was born at a time when America still was great, or still believed it was great. I grew up during the space race. Boy, were we proud of that. I grew up at a time when American manufactured goods were considered the best in the world. We didn't need trade agreements to force other countries to buy our products. They were pounding on the walls saying, please, send us some more Cadillacs, send us some more Chevys. Somehow that all faded away. I keep thinking back to that wonderful HBO miniseries, Newsroom. And I do wish they would try and bring it back. And that speech by Will McAvoy in the premiere episode about why America isn't great anymore. Because he absolutely hit it. Bang spot. We have to recognize there's a problem before we can start to deal with it. And there is a problem on Wall Street and in Washington, D.C. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And let's send a message to Mike in the control room. All right, so we're looking at the economic news. New home sales collapsing. U.S. bond yield forecasts are being lowered. And it looks like the recent bubble in commercial real estate may be on the verge of popping. A big part of the problem is that so much of the economy is being manipulated and manufactured to look the best without actually addressing the underlying problems, which are massive. And maybe the insiders are just aware that there isn't a fix. So they're just going to grab what they can grab while it's still going and get ready to bail. Now, all of a sudden, there is a new meme out there. As we talk about all the hungry and the homeless across the country, we talk about the 90 million Americans who cannot find any work, the shuttered factories, the retail vacancies, and all of that. Trump's Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is out there saying that poverty is mostly, it's a state of mind. You're not really poor. You just imagine you're poor, and that's your only problem. And apparently, people like Morgan Freeman are jumping on with this. And Ben Carson, poverty is just a state of mind. No, poverty is a reality. When you're going hungry, when you can't feed your family, this is more of that blame the victim mindset. Very alarming indicator. It's like the BBC telling the people of London, just get used to the bombings. What they're saying is, we can't fix the problem, just get used to the new reality. Same thing with this poverty is a state of mind. We can't fix the economy. Just get used to it. This is the new normal. And again, this is also a part of the globalist agenda. They have to drive every single nation's standard of living down to the same bottom level to make it easier to lower those borders. Okay. I'm sorry if I sound a little depressed, but I am. It's just terrible watching what's happening to this country. And it sort of reminds me of many, many years ago when my mother was succumbing to cancer, or to the cancer treatment. I'm still not really sure. And just week after week, month after month, just seeing it happen. And I'm feeling the same way watching this country, which I may have been very naive and deluded as a child. I probably was. We probably all were. But to see what's going on with this country that I was raised to love, it is very painful sometimes. All right. Let's get back on here. Over in Greece, as you know, things are really, really tense. The second attempt at a bailout has failed. Greece is hovering on the edge of default. Could cause a system-wide problem over there in the European Union. But apparently, the ex-Prime Minister, ex-Central Banker of Greece, and ex-Vice President of the European Central Bank, Papademos, had an assassination attempt on him. Apparently he was in his car and he opened a letter, which turned out to be a letter bomb. He's got abdominal injuries, but apparently things are getting very, very tense over there in Greece. Once again, the appeals court has ruled against Donald Trump's travel ban. The case is likely going to go to the Supreme Court. And once again, the appeals court said that it was discriminating on the basis of religion. And no, it does not. The travel ban does not specifically say Muslim travelers. It lists a series of nations that are known to be hostile to the United States, where you will have to have additional scrutiny coming to the United States. And if you are in one of those listed nations, it doesn't matter if you are Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Pastafarian, or atheist, you're going to get the same treatment. But the appeals court is still trying to claim that this is somehow racially biased, and so it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And again, the president does have the authority to exclude categories of travelers from coming to the United States of America, and other presidents have used it. We'll be right back after these few words. Hello, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to do a couple more stories on immigration. Then we're going to take a few phone calls here. Down in Australia, they're starting to firm up their attitude about the refugees. and in particular what they're calling fake refugees. Because under international law, a refugee is somebody who is demonstrably fleeing a conflict zone. And as we have seen all across Europe, here in the United States, and apparently down in Australia, a lot of the people coming on in and claiming refugee status do not meet the definition. And so the Australian government is preparing for mass deportations of some of the refugees they have who are causing the same kind of troubles in Australia that we're seeing all across Europe and the United States. And basically saying that anybody who does not complete this visa application by October 1st and have that visa approved will be sent back to where they came from. It's going to be a hugely expensive undertaking. But I think all of these countries are realizing that this open borders policy has gone on far enough. It is causing a tremendous amount of harm, and we know that George Soros is going to be out there trying to reverse this. But it really is Soros' fault, and that of the globalists, in that they had this vision of simply blurring all of the populations of the world together, and they did not really think it all the way through to what the possible outcomes might be at the ordinary street level. Or maybe they did and they just didn't care. You know, so some people get raped and murdered. You know, small price to pay for our dreams of a one-world government. Apparently, during the Obama administration, at least 16 members of the gang MS-13, or the Mara Salvatrucha, got into the United States. And apparently they have set up shop here. They're a very dangerous gang. Go on out. It's MS-13. They're a very, very dangerous gang. And they're building new MS-13 gangs here in the United States by recruiting young people who can't find jobs, all in the name of open borders. All right, let's take some phone calls. Keith in Cleveland, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha. Aloha. Yeah, this is my first time listening to your show, and I love it. Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, you keep mentioning about oligarchs, you know, that are running the show, but I have to tell you that I really have to say, let's call them what they really are. They are kleptomaniacs running a plutocracy. You know, that's
I like that.
It's a klepto-plutocracy in a way. I mean, so that's the only thing I want to say is, like, these people are mad in high positions. Look at throughout history, Nero, for example, who blamed the Christians and had a purpose and a reason to burn them on a cross throughout the city, and then he burnt down the whole city of Rome, you know, back in 65 AD, and he
Yes.
blamed it on the Christians. But the point that I'm trying to make is the Hegelian dialectic process has been going on for millennia. And it is a shame that we have to experience this, yes, but there is a battle amongst all the men and women on this planet, and it's like what Shakespeare said, you know, all the world is a stage, you know, amongst all the universe. So what you are doing is a real blessing to you, you know, to patriots and God-fearing men and women that really want truth to be divulged. And so anyways, I just want to say that there is a movement under the Earth Charter, you know, the new 10 Commandments within these kleptomaniacs that they've signed in throughout the different organizations like the Trilateral Commission, you know, the Lucis Trust, which used to be called Lucifer Trust. I mean, there's so many different organizations out there. You got the Club of Rome, you know, back in the day. I mean, there's just hundreds of these different sects of secret orders, you know, that have been basically duping the public into bringing about this one world order under, you know, what was it, Alice Bailey and different Manly P. Hall and different, basically Sikhs and different mystics.
Oh,
that have
okay,
tried to bring
Keith,
about this new world order.
Keith,
Yeah.
you're kind of like hopping all over the place here. You told our screener
Okay.
that you wanted to talk about manufacturing, so can we kind of get back to that point?
Okay, yeah, sure, I can totally do that. Yeah, basically, I have relatives, you know, that have, you know, I'm from the Cleveland area, and Cleveland was literally back in the day, back in the early 1900s, we actually produced more steel in the city of Cleveland than Pittsburgh.
Yes.
You know, there was about over 100,000 workers within the steel manufacturing industry at that time. So technically, Cleveland at that one, you know, at one point in time, used to be what Silicon Valley is today.
Yes.
You know, over in San Fran. So it's like the fact that I'm trying to get to all these kleptomaniacs and bring it all together is basically they have devised this Earth Charter to bring about these the redistribution of the wealth around the world. They basically want to bring us into a second world status level, and that's what they want the whole world to be. You know, they want to impoverish the wealthy people and bring us into subjection so that we will just hook, line, and sinker fall in place for this new world order.
Well, yeah,
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, the new world order is a return to fascism. We've had a lot of people who are saying that where basically there are going to be these ultra-rich nobles across the planet that have absolutely tyrannical control over their population, and they will simply engage in war with each other until one of them comes out on top. And I think it was just yesterday on the show I said it feels like civilization is actually moving backward rather than forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, over in South Korea, they just had an election there, and sadly, a liberal president got elected. But I used to be a missionary over there in South Korea, Christian, born-again Christian missionary. And, you know, South Korea, Seoul, Korea is like what America used to be in the 1950s.
Yes.
I mean, the women were just going out to a cafe, the women would be wearing white gloves and dressing up. I mean, people were very stately. You know, wherever you walked in Korea, it's beautiful. And then America, you know, you walk around and people are walking in their pajamas in, you know, bunny slippers.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I'm a truck driver, so I'm all over the place, but I see it. It's sad. It's like America has just come into this whole other place of, you know, losing its decade.
Yeah,
you know,
and what's even crazier is all these people in their pajamas and bunny slippers, they're taking selfies, which I think is a symptom. Anyway,
Right.
Keith, I got to let you go. We're running out of time.
God bless.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch to Kathy in Massachusetts. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I'm not in Massachusetts, though, now. I've moved to Missouri, but I'm from Massachusetts because I'm really in deep culture shock. But the poverty that I'm seeing here is horrific. All right, now my housing is stable, and I'm in a great place to live, but listen, the poverty, I can't really put it into words. I may share a couple of pictures with you I've taken, but people are working for very low wages. I've never seen so many toothless people in my life. It's shocking. People that you wouldn't think would be toothless. Do you understand me? They've been working their entire lives, but they can't afford any health care. So I'd like Mr. Carson. I'd love to have a chat with him about right now, okay?
Yes.
I mean, he'd be better off if he needs to just shut his mouth, period. That's ridiculous. There's a time to just shut your mouth and you don't say things like that. It's so unbelievable. It's like the schadenfreude thing comes into mind, like just getting off on the, you know, on the power that you have over other people. You know what I mean? In a very negative way. But I've been told by a pastor recently, and he did apologize later, he's African American, and I'm white, but I find I resonate, you know what I mean, with African Americans because they've had historically been denied access to health, you know, the poverty wage, the whole history. Yes. And but I'll also call if I see, you know, some gang kind of kids on the train in Boston. I've actually confronted graciously a couple of times, like, excuse me, you know, don't do that. Like, you know, so I'm not afraid to stand up to anyone that's acting really inappropriate. But I had one of this pastor tell me a couple of months ago, well, you're going to be ignored until you die. Oh, and I had just moved here. I had been treated very, very harshly by some of the far right wingers here. You know, one of the drivers said, well, I know one thing. My husband and I, we'd never be enmeshed in the system like you are. You know, my husband's missing a kidney. He's got lesions on the other one. And if he can, you know, work, I don't know why you can't. This woman has no idea that I worked with a broken bone in a foot for a year and a half. And I'm very, very delicate. I'm more delicate than I look because And then add to that the cost of the type 1 diabetic stuff, right?
Yes.
$10 an hour is my earning potential. So bottom line is that was just a crushing blow. That was spoken to me bitter in front of a whole bunch of people. And I got those quiet tears after I pushed back uprightly. And I said, well, I don't really think you call that giving up, okay? So I'm not fitting in well, so we'll see what God has for me next. But I'm kind of looking at this like I'm so isolated right now, but my housing is stable, and how can you surrender that? You really can't. But I'm just seeing things that are shocking. And I don't think this person would last 10 days in this world that I'm seeing here. But the other thing, though, I was told that you're going to be ignored until you died, and I wept I wept after I was told that. But again, it is the truth. So I'm just having to live at a much higher plane. I've never reacted. I just am gracious, and they kind of don't know what to do with that because I'm very high functioning, and I'm not sure the bitter, clannish right-wingers here quite know how to deal with me because I'm very ethical. I don't fit any of the negative stereotypes, and so it's kind of interesting. So everyone keep me in your prayers. But the other one, because I really want to make it better so that people like me can go to church or can go to events and not be looked at. The looks that I get, I mean, it's just shocking because this is the first time I've ever lived in HUD-supported housing. And my parents were airplane pilots. I didn't grow up poor, but I can't afford the health care they're deceased. I had one other thing, not to jump around. I thought of you when I saw this article. It's about PSSD and Dr. Stuart Shipko, and that would be post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. And I thought of you when I saw that because it says once people have been on this a long time, the SSRIs, that they have a hard time basically falling in love even. And it was an interesting article, and I thought of you when I saw it. And it's Dr. Stuart Shipko, Shipko.
Okay, yeah.
I thought you might want to look at that.
Okay, I'll look that up. I mean, these psychiatric medications have all kinds of adverse effects. Not all of them are violent and suicidal. But again, if you listen to those disclaimers on the advertisements for prescription medication on TV, and they'll say things in there like, you're taking this medicine, you may lose your libido, and all these other things will happen. People need to pay attention to that. People need to understand we're living in a society that is hostile to our health and happiness in the name of grabbing the last few coins out of our pockets. Anyway, Kathy, good luck where you are. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that culture shock. I went through the same thing when my family went from farming country, New Hampshire, to Los Angeles, and there was a very hard adjustment period there. And it's worse now because we are seeing all of this intentional fanning up of racial tensions here. In fact, there's this bizarre story that was posted by a member at whatreallyhappened.com. Apparently, Hunter College is offering a course called Abolition of Whiteness that will discuss how white supremacy and violence influence individual identity. And it's just, they're fanning this up. The government literally wants to create a situation where we, the American people, are at war with each other out of their fear that we are about to unite as a single American people and say, we've had enough of this government abuse. We've had enough of the corporate abuse. We've had enough of war. We've had enough of the government spying on us. We've had enough of all of the dirty tricks. We want the country back that we were promised in that Constitution and under that Bill of Rights. Okay, one more phone call here. Frank in London. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Just wanted to say that I'm quite pleasantly surprised that since the Manchester incident, a lot of people have their own individual opinion on views on what happened. I'm surprised. I work for the local government, so you'd imagine I'm working in an open plan office, and even the people who were, who were staunch believers in whatever the corporate media said somehow was wholly sacred and true, are now very doubtful of the corporate media. And they form their own opinion. I was surprised people saying, well, this is a false flag. Even they find out, they think this guy could have been duped or of committing that such a heinous crime. But, yeah, I'm quite surprised. A lot of people are a lot more open-minded with information, with looking at alternative information and trying to analyze things for themselves, which I think is a pretty healthy thing that's happening in this country now.
Well, yeah, it's happening all over the world, and that's why governments and corporate media are panicking and trying to find some way that they can silence or outshout or discredit the independent media because they've lost their ability to lie to the public with impunity, and that is a tremendous loss for them because being able to lie to their population was their primary form of control, and they're afraid of that now. They're understanding that the people are waking up and just assuming that whatever's coming out of the government's mouth is a lie, whatever's coming off that TV screen is a lie, and people are taking it upon themselves to go on out and find the available facts and then decide for themselves what's going on. And so, yeah, there are definitely signs of panic in the bowels of power, and we are at a crisis point, and we might even be in the end game, where we are on the verge of a Soviet-style collapse of the United States government. And from where I sit, that would be the best possible outcome. It would put an end to all of this interventions and spheres of influence nonsense. We could all basically put down these weapons of war and go back to the business of peace through commerce, of just making things, growing things, selling to each other, living our lives, and having a little bit of peace and prosperity. And
well, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because, I mean, I don't know what you think of this. From my perspective, I think right now what's happening, I think there is a sort of deep state war between the nationalistic oligarch, unfortunately, and the globalist oligarchs. And it seems like it's two big clubs fighting against each other, and we're the people who pushed around in the middle.
Okay, well, if any nationalistic oligarchs are listening to this broadcast, please make a donation. All right, we're going to let you go here. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And Fox News is actually carrying the story of Gianforte being charged with assault up there in Montana. We talked about it earlier in the show. And then, of course, we had the caller calling on in and said, well, the reporter had it coming, and Gianforte was the... Okay. And even Fox News is saying that, yes, Gianforte's campaign tried to launch a campaign of getting on out there and trying to claim it was the reporter's fault and everything. So this show must rank pretty high on somebody's political action list here. Now then, over in California, there's a class action lawsuit against the transit police. They have been handing out a free BART Watch app for smartphones. And basically the BART Watch is that if you see criminal activity, you can immediately report it directly to the BART police. Unfortunately, it turns out these See Something, Say Something apps are allowing police to spy on everybody, including the users of the application. At least 10,000 to 50,000 people have downloaded what's called the eLerts spying app, and the lawsuit reveals transit police are using eLerts to secretly collect everyone's cell phone identification number, otherwise known as the International Mobile Equipment Identity Number. That's what goes on that little tiny chip that they put into your cell phone to make it uniquely yours and identify it to the network. So even from the Bay Area Rapid Transit, be very careful what apps you accept because there's probably more in there than you were told there was. Now, apparently there's been an article published in the New England Journal of Medicine providing the first solid evidence that marijuana can be used to treat epilepsy, which has been often anecdotally reported in the past. And apparently, in this particular case, it helped children who had a very rare form of epilepsy that couldn't be treated any other way. So it's another argument for allowing medicinal use of marijuana. Pushing back on that, though, somebody's done an economic study saying that if marijuana was legalized for medicinal purposes, it would basically result in a loss of $4 billion annually from Big Pharma's concocted medicines. And that is why there is such pressure to keep marijuana illegal. Once again, it's not about what's best for you, it's what's best for the corporate profits. Now, the movie Vaxxed is making headway around the world. Concern about vaccine safety is continuing to grow. And apparently down in New Zealand, They were having a theater screening of Vaxxed, and right in the middle of it, this doctor, Dr. Lance O'Sullivan, jumped up onto the stage to scream, "It's all lies, it's all fakes, it's a hoax, vaccines are wonderful, you've got to think of the children." So apparently they're feeling the pressure about that one. Finally, the Republicans in the House and Senate have introduced a bill they're calling the Back the Blue Act of 2017. Makes it virtually impossible to sue the police for bad behavior. That is a dangerous step in the wrong direction. And the bill will create new federal crimes, impose federal police over the will of local officials and voters, and shield police officers from virtually from any civil liability, even in the case of egregious misconduct. This thing needs to be defeated. There's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something done with the rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, with the lovely Lady Claire here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. So until then, aloha, America.